Hi there, everyone. I'm Ina Hillebrandt, and this is Chester L. Richards with me, a wonderful author. We're going to talk to him about his adventure-filled life, which is what fills his book. And let's just dive right in, Chester. By the way, how are you?
I'm fine, and it's good to be here.
Great. It's good for me to be here, too. I'm really enjoying being part of the Spring BookFest events. This is really a great weekend. So, Chester, I wanted to dive in and talk to you about adventure. I know this is a big thing in your life, as it shows in the book, and I'd like to know, first off, what kinds of adventures are there? You've said that there are two types of adventures. Can you expound on that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, there's basically the voluntary and the involuntary adventures. The voluntary ones are where you strap a pack on your back and you go wander in the woods for a while and get chased around by bears and lions and tigers and, well, tigers in India if you go that far. And then there's there's a lot of that. And everybody has it in his life. Take a new job, get married. These are all voluntary adventures. And you can learn a great deal from each one of these experiences. Then there's involuntary adventures, things that happen to you. You know, you get sick or you have just, things happen in the environment around you. Most of those are good. And you just learn from the experience, meeting new people, things of that sort. Meeting wonderful new people can be a great adventure, but you didn't have that intention. It just happened to you. So that's an involuntary adventure. And then there's the bad kind, where you get stuck in an earthquake or a brush fire, which we've had around here in California more than once. I've been through a couple of those. And, things that happen in other parts of the world that we read about. Or maybe experience. So those are the kinds you really don't want to have. But if you get through them okay, you have a good story to tell as a result of that.
And you've got plenty in the book, and there's one of the fire adventure that's going to be coming in book 2. I know. It's a good lesson to be able to make something out of an adventure that brings something to you. Can you talk about that a little bit? You've got that in the book, and I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Oh, and talk about an open-ended question.
Well, let's do it in 1 second. I know you can handle that.
Yeah, right. How many hours do we have here?
Yeah, let me rephrase. The question I really have is, when one goes through the kinds of adventures that are really kind of hair-raising, and you've had so many of them. There are a ton of them in the book, and you come out of it alive. What does that bring to you as a human being?
My God, I lived through that. I'm alive.
Okay, so that's the first thing you realize. I got through it.
There's. Let me try and give you an example. So I was doing some kayaking on the Rogue River up in Oregon. And there was a really tough rapid that we had to go through. I was taking a class in whitewater kayaking. And our graduation class was to go through this horrendously bad rapid. And I got through it. And I got through it up. I didn't flip over or anything like that. I managed to get through it alive. And I got to tell you, at the end of that, when I finally paddled out of the rapid section, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. The exaltation was incredible.
Uh-huh.
The adrenaline was just pouring through me, and I wasn't alone. Everybody else who came through that experience had exactly that same reaction. So there are enormous rewards that come through this. Your first reaction is, I got through it alive. Your second reaction is, hey, that was a hell of an experience.
which is okay. Lovely. Thank you. Let me ask you something else here. The kinds of adventures that you've had include failure sometimes. Why is failure important to our success?
Well, that's something that you certainly learn in engineering, which is part of my profession. Engineering and physics are my
Yeah.
profession.
Yeah.
Um, you learn far more from diagnosing the failures that you've
Uh,
had than
uh,
you do by a success. All that a success does is it tells you you know what you're doing. What's to learn? You already know the answer.
mhm,
When you fail, you don't know the answer. Now you have to find out why. Why is it that things went wrong? And now you go through a diagnostic phase, very much like what a doctor does when he's examining a patient and trying to figure out what's wrong with the patient. Um, and it's through that diagnostic phase that you actually do your learning. So
mhm,
failure is an absolutely essential thing. But, I mean, it's commonplace in that part of the world. For example, I don't think it's possible to write a piece of software of 15 lines of code without making a bug. There's got to be bugs in 15 lines of code. And every software engineer knows this intimately. You make mistakes. I mean, it's an inevitable thing. As a writer, you know that. As an editor will clearly explain. You'll just be writing along, and all of a sudden, when you go back and look over the text, you find you've left words out, you've misspelled things. Everything is cattywampus, and you have to make a fix. But at the time you're doing the writing, you think you're doing it completely correctly. Yeah, so you learn. You learn from the failures, not from the success.
that's terrific. Thank you so much. I put that in my pipe and smoke it, as they say. I want to go back to some of the stories you were just talking about a minute ago when you were out in the rapid and you didn't get killed. Why is it that I've heard you say nature wants to kill you?
Well, I don't think I've said that. I think other people have made that interpolation. What my opinion of nature is, nature doesn't care.
uh,
Nature is potentially a very dangerous place that can kill you,
uh-huh.
but nature is just nature. It has no opinion on the subject. Let me put it that way. And that this is really important because if you're going to go out into the wilderness, you're going to have to prepare yourself. You have to prepare yourself not just physically but mentally as well,
Uh-huh.
and you have to understand what the hazards are going into it. So, just as an example, for example, in going through whitewater experiences, which I've had quite a bit of, um, you not only learn from experienced people around you what
Mm-hmm.
you have to do to protect yourself when you get in particular
Right.
situations like
Right.
being thrown out into a rapid or something of that sort. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to have the right kind of equipment. I'll tell you, without the life jacket that you've got on, you drown. Because the life jacket has brought me from the bottom of the river to the surface more than once.
I've been reading about that in the book. There's a story in there called The Cliff, which is really quite exciting.
Yeah, well, that didn't happen to me. That
I
I'm
know,
describing what happened to
I
somebody.
know. And Lava Falls is the one where you really
Where
went.
I did explore the bottom of the river. That was the
Yes.
Colorado River in the Grand
Yeah,
Canyon. Yes.
yeah. That was quite a story, and it's amazing how you got through that. Going back to times when you almost got killed or could have gotten killed, uh, brings me back into rocket science because your work as a rocket scientist also was kind of edgy at some points. And there's a story in there about a test stand, and that's pretty. Can you talk a little bit about that one?
I was perfectly safe. What's the problem?
Right, but 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 it didn't start out that way.
No, I was in the blockhouse. I had instruments that were we had a rocket engine test stand, and I had
Mhm.
instruments on the rocket engine. And so I was in the blockhouse and I was monitoring all the instruments, the recording instruments and things of that
Mhm.
sort. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden there was a little pop. Didn't sound like much, just a little pop.
Uh-huh.
And my instruments all went to zero. And the same thing happened all the way up and down the line in the blockhouse. All the instrumentation went
Uh-huh.
to zero.
Uh-huh.
So I turned to one of the technicians. I said, "What's going on?" And he says, "We just blew up the test stand." And I said, "That pop?" He said, "Yeah, that little pop, but we just blew up the test stand." I said, "Well, let's go out and take a look." He says, "Don't do that. now it's really dangerous out there. I said, why? He says, well, it's a hydrogen fluoride fuel system. He says, we have to wait an hour for all the very lethal gases to blow away. And
So if
we went out after an hour, and the entire end of the test stand was just gone. It was just had vaporized. The amount of power that's involved in one of those little rocket engines is just astonishing.
so that's part of what gets us to the moon, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a story. Talk a little bit more about one of the titles of one of the things that a story that's in the title of the book is about Star Trek. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
So I was a graduate student, and I had a friend who I had met when she was an undergraduate, and she had finished up and wanted to write a story for Star Trek, script for Star Trek. And I had an interesting idea, and I told her the idea. And so she invited me to collaborate with her in doing a speculative script for Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a long story, which I describe in the book, but basically through a series of connections and good luck at the same time, they actually read our script and decided to buy it. So that started an adventure on this having to do with the people at Star Trek. And that original story got completely rewritten along the way. And it finally went on the air as one of the most successful episodes in the third season of the original Star Trek back in 1968.
Which is really some story. And the script, well, I won't tell that. There's something about the script that's very special that comes up in the story. It's a rainbow script. I'll just say that much.
Well, what they do is every time you make a change to a page, mm-hmm. they insert a new page with the modifications, but it's a different color. So by the time you've gone through all of the revisions of the script comes out looking like a rainbow. And it's called, the shooting script is called a rainbow script.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But something happened to that particular script that was pretty remarkable. I'm not going to leave it at that. We're going to not give it away, but it's really a great story. And that's one of the most fun stories in the book. There are a lot of fun stories. A lot of times when I laugh as I read it, and other readers have been saying the same thing, and other times when you go, what's going to happen next? And then there are other times when it just gets kind of, wow, is that how that works? So I never knew that. So you have a lot of stuff in there about optics and some of the other interests that you've had in life. I would also like to ask you real quick, what brought you to write these stories? What is it about these stories for you?
Well, the whole project got started when my wife suddenly died. Mm-hmm. There had been some warnings, but it still was a tremendous shock, and I was devastated by it. And I just found that by writing these stories that she had already heard these stories. I'd told her the stories, so there was nothing new there. But just writing them down helped me recover. And I just kept writing and writing and writing. Next thing you know, I've got a book out of this, and then I just kept writing, and I'm still writing. So we're on the third book now. And
we've got a ton of stuff. Let me say that we sort of have book 2 close to ready. That's going to be released sometime next year. Book 3 is now in the works because you cannot stop writing, which I think is just.
I'm trying to use up all the ideas and incidents that might be interesting to people.
But they keep happening.
Close, but
but they keep happening. So that's what goes on in a writer's life. If you're a writer, you sort of get into it, and it's wonderful. It's a great energy. I want to say thank you so much, Chester. It's been delightful talking to you. The name of the book?
Of course, yes.
Thank you. The name of the book is From the Potato to Star Trek and Beyond, Memoirs of a Rocket Scientist. You can find these. You can find us on the profiles on the BookFest Fall 2022 website. It's a wonderful adventure. Please, everybody, Stay tuned both days. There are so many good things happening. Thanks so much for being with us. Chester, thank you. And bye for now.